Sargent's Greenscapes is a full-service lawn and landscape company located in Marion, Ohio. We specialize in making your home a beautiful place to enjoy your time. Fall is here, and that means the leaves are falling. This year, let Sarge and the troops clean up that mess for you. We have the equipment and strong backs to handle any amount of leaves you may have. So sit back, relax, and let us take care of everything. Mention that you heard about us on Scotch Spears Now and receive 5% off any service. Also, ask about our senior citizen and veterans discounts. From landscaping to lawn care, mowing to leaf removal, Sarge and the troops can give you an outdoors to make your country proud. Find us on Facebook or call 740-751-5200. The Harding Center, located at 267 West Center Street in the heart of downtown Marion, is now accepting applications from adults, students, and seniors. The Harding Center is a beautiful historic building offering one-bedroom apartments and efficiencies at affordable rental rates. All utilities are included. Basic cable and internet are available. The Harding Center is equipped with an on-site laundry facility for its residents. The property is located on the Marion City Transit bus line, and off-street parking is available. The Harding Center is managed by Starfish Building, LLC, Lois J. Fisher and Associates. For more information, contact them at hardingcenter@gmail.com or give them a call at 740-223-3288. The Harding Center, a beautiful place to live in the heart of downtown Marion. This is Scott Spears, and I'd like to welcome you to another edition of Scott Spears Now. Tonight the guest, Tom Oyster, back with us. Last week we had a very interesting conversation on the government shutdown, which has still not been ironed out. At the time of this broadcast on Monday, October the 14th, government set to shut down this Thursday, October the 17th, if the debt ceiling is not voted to be raised. Maybe it will be by the time this airs, maybe it won't be, but tonight that is the focus of the conversation of this particular program. Tom, good to have you back on.
Thanks, Scott. It's good to be back.
Interesting conversation last week, and here we are, 8 days after that taping,
Yeah.
and we're still not solved.
We are not any closer than we were last week.
Why do you think that is?
Well, as much as it pains me to say that I agree with John Boehner, he has seemed to have developed a spine in the last week or so and has continued to stand his ground. And I'm very proud of that.
Because if we check the tape, if we go back, you said he would cave.
I figured that he would.
Hasn't yet.
Not yet. I'm kind of happy about that.
Well, the news broadcast today, though, say there might be a deal being worked out.
There might be. We'll see.
One thing I want to talk about, we didn't really get into too in-depth last week, but I want to talk a little bit about it this week. The Tea Party is really getting made out to be very radical.
Right.
What do you think about that?
Well, I'd like to know what they're considering radical. If they think it's radical to want a small government and less spending, then I guess that's probably true. Then they may be radicals, but to me that doesn't seem very radical.
Do you think the radical idea might be that they are the ones technically stopping the government? I mean, that's a big statement to say, but it seems like the people who were funded by the Koch brothers who spurred this are the ones who really are holding it hostage. The John Boehner group, which last week you referred to as kind of a spineless group,
Yes.
middle-of-the-line group.
I still would call them that.
Okay. They're the ones who probably would go along. But it's this Tea Party group so I think that's why they're called radical. I don't think anybody's saying their beliefs are radical. The idea that we should shut down the government 83% for 8 days.
No,
and
no. 83% is open. We haven't shut down 83%.
83% open for 8 days, and we're heading into the debt ceiling.
We're at 14 days now, not 8. Just 8 days since the last time you and I talked.
That's right. We were
total.
shut down at that point, weren't
Yeah.
we? So this has been down a long time. Not quite 28 days in 1995,
Right.
but a long time. But in any event,
Sure.
they're the group that's saying we're still not going to settle, and we've got 2 days left till the debt ceiling, which is going to turn into a big crisis.
I'm not sure what crisis are you speaking of when we hit the debt ceiling.
What do you believe will happen if we do?
Probably nothing.
You think nothing will change?
Shouldn't.
From what I understand, the idea is that the stock market will continue to tumble, which it already has a bit.
It has slipped. Tumble is probably a stretch.
Well, I don't think it hasn't tumbled yet. It'll tumble then.
Okay.
And that if Mary Ellen Withrow brought this up. Did you happen to see the episode we did with her?
I did not see that.
I didn't realize this. This is a good thing to have the
Okay.
treasurer on. That 2/3, and I hope I'm getting that right, 2/3 of our money is outside this country.
Oh, yeah.
And we
Every bit of it.
are the world currency.
Yes.
And if they decide not to have us as the world currency anymore because we're unstable, that's going to be a huge problem.
That's China actually proposed that today.
And that's another thing I think we're fighting here.
Sure. But I really don't think that a whole lot's going to change. You know, when we hit the debt ceiling, it just means we're not allowed to borrow anymore. That's all that means. It doesn't mean we lose our income stream. It doesn't mean that we're not paying our bills anymore. It just means that we're not allowed to swipe, Mr. Visa card anymore and take on more debt.
Exactly. But the programs will stop being funded.
They shouldn't be. They're being funded now.
Well, they are, but there is inflation. I mean, I was reading a story today that this year's Social Security increase for 2014 for the senior citizens
About 1.5%.
will be one of the lowest
Okay.
in recorded history.
And that's unfortunate for the people that have paid into that for their entire lives. They're counting on that money they paid into it. They ought to be able to draw back out of that. But to be honest with you, there shouldn't be any difference in anything that we have now. If we can't borrow anymore, then we need to cut somewhere instead of continuing to borrow and spend our grandchildren and great-grandchildren's money.
We brought this up again last time. Where do we make those cuts?
Anywhere and everywhere that's necessary.
How does this country end up running? Because here's the interesting thing that I looked into when I knew that we were going to have this debt ceiling conversation.
Okay.
The debt ceiling, the rising of the debt ceiling started 1930s. That's
Okay.
when it originally started.
Right.
So we've covered a lot of ground since 1930, and
Right.
every single president under their Republican or Democrat has raised it.
Sure.
Reagan raised it 7 times. Clinton, I think 4 or 5 times. W. Bush was one of the biggest culprits of it.
Absolutely.
Did it a lot of times. Obama's only done it 3 times.
Right, but Obama has almost doubled the national debt.
But here's the thing I want to know. When it's been done before, there's never a stink has never been made except with Clinton. One time with Clinton, they got
Okay.
into it over raising that.
Right.
Both times Obama's 2 of the 3, it has been a big issue. I don't even think people.
It is a big issue.
But it can be. But I'm saying I don't think it was ever even in the news during the George W. Bush years. I don't think there was a hesitancy to ever raise that.
Well, no, it wouldn't have been, because you had a progressive Republican president that was getting what he wanted from a progressive Congress. There was no controversy there.
But a lot of that was a Republican Congress.
Well, yeah, but Republican and progressive can go hand in hand.
I guess so. Who do we want to see run this country when
Ted Cruz.
Ted Cruz. Okay. Well, here becomes the problem.
If you want to go that route.
Right. I think here becomes the problem, though, that I think everybody's going to say. It's easy to say that nothing bad's going to happen, but I don't necessarily know that's true, because I think
nothing bad should happen, though, because all it means is that we can't incur more debt. It doesn't mean that we're not going to pay our bills, and it doesn't mean that we stop collecting tax revenue.
So do you believe we've ever had a fiscally responsible president since 1940?
Oh, no. Not
So
at
we've
all.
never had one.
No.
So
there have
in
been
your
some that are
estimate-
better than others, but Andrew
in-
Jackson's the only president that's ever wiped the national debt out.
So in your estimation, since 1940, Roosevelt on, this country has been in a downward spiral.
Yes.
And
Starting with the New Deal and going down from there.
Well, we
Yes.
could go a long way with that. But so a downward spiral, and every president is culpable in that.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so saying that, what is it you support? You can say Ted Cruz today and people who
Sure.
stand on their morals, but all these years of your life and all these years in the history books, who was a hero to you?
Andrew Jackson. He
But
paid
y-
off the debt.
But in modern
You're
times,
you're talking modern times.
1940 on.
Say 1940 on. As far as a president, well, I mean, I obviously like Reagan. A fiscal conservative. Yes, he raised the debt limit. Yeah, he was pro-amnesty and did a couple of other things that I'm not real fond of. But Reagan was a I don't know if a hero is the right word that we're going for, but I like Reagan. I initially liked
Can
W.
you be a Republican and not like Reagan? I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but can you? Because he
it's
has become
difficult.
like the patron saint.
I know.
in the Republican
and,
Party.
I think his reputation probably is larger than life. He was not as president. He wasn't the person that we perceive him as now. But I liked W at the beginning, and then he went off the cliff there after he got reelected.
Where did he go wrong?
Well, speaking as a veteran, we completely botched the Iraq War. We never went in order to win. And then, he started out with No Child Left Behind, which is a terrible, terrible thing. We raised the debt too far. The guy just, it was about 2005, I guess, he decided that he was going to do whatever he wanted to because he didn't have to get reelected again. His true colors came out.
I understand that people, certainly Republicans, like to say that Obama's presidency and Obama's increasing of the debt limit and stimuluses and things of that nature have nothing to do with the guy who preceded him. Well, I think that's said because we want to say, well, take accountability. But can you, in those modern times, take any president, whether it was a change in party or a change in presidency, and get such a major discrepancy in financial problems from the guy before him to the guy after him?
Well, yeah, I think you certainly can. I mean, just look at the two, from the example that you had. When Obama took office, we were roughly $9 trillion in debt, and Thursday we're looking at $17 trillion in debt. So, there certainly are issues. The fact that he took over a $9 trillion debt, but he's essentially doubled that in the span of 5 years. I mean, he has accrued more debt than all of the previous presidents before him.
Now, is there anything to be said for the fact that the wars and the prescription drug plan that were put on the credit card during the Bush years all of a sudden came due?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Some of that is, but had he proposed a budget any time in the last 5 years that would have cut some spending, then we could have curtailed that or slowed it down some.
Or the deregulation under Reagan in the housing market and the deregulation that continued further under the Bush years. Now, that's true.
That's a Clinton issue, though, too.
It certainly is. But when Bush, and I'm not certainly putting the blame, because I don't think Reagan would have went as far as Bush did in deregulating the housing market.
Absolutely.
Which sent us
we built that housing market on sand.
Which sent us, I mean, I really, people can say what they want about the political color of this show, but, you can pick up a history book here and see that in the last year of W. Bush, it went from 4% unemployment to 8% in 1 year. I mean, that's a double.
Absolutely.
That hasn't happened under Obama. That hasn't happened under Clinton.
Actually, it did happen under Obama. We went from 8 to 12, and actually now...
but that's not a double. I mean, we're talking double.
Well, no, but where your percentage increase is still the same.
Your
amount of people is still the same.
Amount of people still the same, but we were just slippery sloping. You had a man walk out of office as everything was continuing to flutter downhill.
And instead of stopping it, Obama kept kicking them further and further down the hill.
What should he have done? What would have made you happy? What could he have done that Bush couldn't do? Because Bush was not stopping. No, I'm saying Bush in 2008.
Okay.
Everything was falling apart. Matter of fact, during that election, I believe it's the only time in history that both McCain and Obama said we got to stop campaigning because the country's falling apart. And the
country was falling apart.
And the president didn't seem to be doing a whole lot about it at that point.
No, he was working on his way out.
He was busy as everything was falling apart.
Right.
So here comes the new guy. Say it had been McCain. What should McCain have done?
Well, he should have done the exact same thing that Obama didn't do.
Which is?
Well, you would have stopped the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. We would have stopped just the rampant spending that we have at the federal level. We would certainly not have passed Obamacare under McCain. Now, granted, we could have had McCain care. I mean, the guy's certainly a progressive along with him. But, I mean, that's going to add $3 trillion in and of itself to the national debt in the first 5 years.
You know what's strange, though, that I find interesting? The first time health care was not an issue in a presidential election was the last one. And it was in the reverse. Every election up until that point, whether it was the Republican or Democrat, people were angry that there wasn't affordable, reliable health care.
We could discuss why there's not affordable, reliable health care all day
We
long.
could, but I'm saying it's just interesting that all of a sudden it's almost, give them what they want and then we got a problem.
Well,
Yeah,
I don't
we
think
don't like
anybody wants it. I mean, again, we go back to the polling is showing 70% of the Americans don't want it.
Yeah, but I think the polling in the 1940s was pretty well the same as Social Security, and I think if you went and polled that today, you would be in the exact opposite direction.
Well, it may very well be, but people are dependent on it now.
Right. But why
Right.
are they dependent on it?
Because they've grown up with a society that wants to hand you something when you retire.
If you are a 65-year-old person watching this program, and you have no pension, which 90% of the jobs do not,
Right, yeah, pretty much union jobs are the only ones that do anymore.
what do you do
Well,
when you hit 65?
You obviously now, at this point, you have Social Security.
But if you didn't,
then you should have planned for that for the last 40 years of your work life, or 45 years.
what if you had dropped it in a 401k and it all crashed down under the Bush years?
You know, as much as that's probably unfortunate that happened, you're responsible for your own finances. I mean, that's my opinion.
So you're as far to say that there should be no money given to the Social Security, there should be no money given to health care on a national basis, there should be no money given to any of these public programs. What do you feel about Head Start, because that's in there too?
Sure.
Medicare.
Ultimately speaking, the fact that we have them now means that we have to continue them on at least some scale. President Bush at one point in time was proposing, that maybe we can do some retirement plan where you take your money instead of putting it in Social Security and you can put it elsewhere, and your employer would have to give their 50% worth the way that they do now. Obviously, that didn't go anywhere. The fact that we have all of those programs now, you have to scale those back a little at a time. You just can't tell somebody that's 64, well, Social Security's not going to be here next year when you do that. But if you were to take and cut it off now for the people that are coming into the workforce when they hit 65 and make them responsible for their own finances for the next 45 or 50 years of their life, then you completely eliminate this problem.
Do you eliminate the problem, or do you create a big problem when they get 65?
What problem will we be hitting when we hit 65?
Well, I think the issue is the last time in this country we did not have Social Security would have been pre-1940s.
Sure.
And the average life expectancy was in your 50s.
Okay.
And most of your jobs were not paying you minimum wage. And the majority of them, after the events in Chicago and the establishment of unions and the heyday of the Teamsters, did have huge pensions and payoffs.
Yeah.
So, we don't have that now.
No.
You're not going to retire, if you're 30 now, you're not going to retire in 35 years with the options that they had in the 1930s. So if you
absolutely you can. You just have to be responsible for your own finances. You just can't wait for your employer or for a union to give it to you. If you're responsible for your own finances, you can take that money and invest it properly. You can buy gold, you can buy stocks and bonds if you want to put your money in the market, if you want to put your money behind paper that doesn't exist anymore in the market. But if you're responsible for yourself, then absolutely you can retire
I want to move off
any way you want.
I want to move off the script, but I do want to ask this one question about this. If that is the case, you just know that everybody's not going to fall in, just like, we have not had a health care plan in this country ever until
not a national plan.
Okay,
We've had
right.
health insurance for decades.
Exactly, but not a national health plan that we're about to implement.
Which is unfortunate. But.
Okay, but irregardless, we have never had that. So don't you believe that the reason that this is being proposed is that we do have 80% of people declaring bankruptcy because of health plans? That's what happened when we left. Well, no, but that's what happened when we left it up to people. I mean, it's easy to say that people should be in charge of their own finances.
And they should be. Why should the government handle your finances for you?
I think most people believe that they shouldn't, but what happens when we don't is that we get issues like that. And it's awful.
Okay.
It's ironic, though, that Social Security came into being right after the stock market crash and the Great Depression. Because
of course it did, because it was all it was designed to be a safety net. But again, the government has no place, again, my opinion, but the government doesn't have any place providing for me. It's my job to provide for myself.
So what would have happened to those people if that hadn't been implemented in the Great Depression? And probably...
Social Security?
Yeah.
Well, the people that went through the Depression as middle-aged adults never saw Social Security.
Not all of them. A lot of them lived on. I mean, I knew people in there. I mean, there are people right now who are just turning, if you're 100 years old right now,
okay,
you were probably 30 during the Great Depression, in your 20s.
So you were in your 20s.
So they saw Social Security.
They may have, but a lot of them never did. I mean, we're talking if you were in your 50s during the Depression, you didn't draw hardly anything back out of Social Security.
But you drew something.
Maybe a little.
More than nothing. My question is, I think when you leave people up to their own devices, just like when you go up to bat, some people strike out and some people don't. So
right.
What do you do with the ones who strike out?
You put them back on the bench.
But what does that mean theoretically in life? What do you do with a 65-year-old who didn't plan?
You're saying in an ideal world?
If Social Security's not there and Medicare's not there and a nationalized health care plan is not there,
okay,
and this person turned 65 years old and they did not save, what happens?
Okay, now and are we saying that Social Security was never an option?
No, now. Let's say now for everybody 30 years old and under, it's not going to be there.
Okay, so we're talking somebody my age
yes,
that now has the next 35 years of their life to
get
plan.
Ready.
And they choose not to?
And they choose not to.
Then why is that my responsibility as a taxpayer to pay for
Well, that's not what I'm
them?
asking. I'm saying what happens to them?
They move in with family. They move in with friends.
And what if they don't have any?
Then they find a cardboard box. As much as that sounds...
That's...
I know it sounds very harsh, and it sounds, to be almost anti-American to say something like that. But let's face it, you've had 35 years to prepare, and if you choose not to do so, why is that my responsibility as a taxpayer when I'm prepared to pay for you if you haven't prepared?
Because I think one of the problems that comes up, and this is kind of interesting, is that it was the people, not everybody suffered during the Great Depression.
No, some people made millions.
Yeah, but a matter of fact, it was the poor people who suffered the least because there was no change for them.
Right.
But it was interesting enough that the poor people were kind of bothered by the rich people because now the rich people were jumping out of windows.
Right.
And businesses were being shut down. So now even the poor people couldn't go to the restaurant and couldn't do this, even on the one day a week they did. And essentially that's what would happen. If you take it away, that's fine. I mean, it's a harsh thing to say. I wouldn't say it. But let them live in a cardboard box. But they're probably at some point going to be angry with you that you're living in a house and they're in a cardboard box, and they're going to come in your house at night and bash your windows in or puncture your tires, and there's going to be this anarchy thing going on.
That may very well be.
So we just let that happen?
Well, why? I mean, if they've committed a crime, then they've committed a crime. I mean, they need to be dealt with accordingly at that point. If they're breaking into somebody's house or slashing tires, I mean, I really, that's kind of a ridiculous example. But like I said, it's not my job as John Q. taxpayer to pay for somebody else's misfortune.
Well, I think the problem is, and it's unfortunate to say this, but I think when left up to society's own devices of what we call a capitalism, which technically is not the term we should be using.
Right.
But in this society that we like to say is capitalist, left up to our own devices over the last 100 years in modern times, we haven't done very well.
No, we've done horribly.
Yeah, but
we're at $17 trillion in debt in a couple of days.
But that's the government end, and we can argue that all day long. But even in the private sector, we now have such an inadequate balance of wealth. I
don't think that's necessarily true.
See, here's what I don't get. When what is the statistic now? It's very high. It's 1% of the population controls 90% of the wealth.
Okay.
So in that situation, how do you? And that's just been going that way. That wasn't that way in 1900. That wasn't that way in 1930.
I understand that.
So how did we get there, left up to our own devices?
Why is it a bad thing? I'll turn the question back around on you.
Why is it a bad thing?
Why is it a bad thing? Why? Bill Gates has no college degree. He's the richest man on earth. He gives a lot of money to causes that I don't agree with, but he does, he donates a lot of money, and he's made his billions on his own merit. Why is that necessarily a bad thing? I mean, if he's a multi-billionaire, why should we not allow him to be a multi-billionaire?
It's not a bad thing. The bad thing in that is when you accumulate so much wealth, and it stays in your family and it does your thing, and you do get tax breaks, if we do go back to the government, from certain political parties and certain political groups, then it's very hard for that person who you're telling just handle your finances better and you'll have a good retirement to do that. And also the problem is the life expectancy now is in its late 70s.
Sure.
Some people it's early 80s. So you would have to save in the next 30 years for 30 years.
Right.
And then it would be almost a punishment if you did live to be 100, because again, there's no program to come help you. And
well, no. Why would that be a punishment, though?
Well, because eventually you're going to run out of money.
Why would I run out of money?
Well, because if you
If I invested properly, I'll never run out of money.
And if you don't, you're just screwed.
And if I do run out of money, that
Yeah.
I'm screwed. Well, yeah, absolutely. But by the time you're 90, you're going to have somebody that you can live with, hopefully.
See, I think
But I mean, we're looking at situations that there's a lot of what ifs in what we're talking about.
Right, but
here.
I mean, reality is, walk down to the homeless shelter.
Okay.
Do you just say to those people, "Where's your family? Where's your friends to live with?"
Yeah.
That's why so there's a choice to be homeless.
Well, a lot of them, it is a choice to be homeless, and some of them it's not. And I'm certainly not trying to make light of any situation that anybody's in. Everybody, each individual situation is different. But I mean, look at the statistics on that. Lots and lots. I mean, the vast majority, something like 70% of the homeless, choose to be that way.
Why would you choose that?
I don't know. I don't choose to be that way.
Right, but I mean, because at some point you have to analyze that if you are living in this country and say, if you truly, because I don't truly believe that they choose that, but if you truly believe they choose that, then why would you ever choose that?
It's the lifestyle that they want to choose. I mean, in a country that we have right now, there should be no reason why anybody should be homeless because of all the government pork that we have attached to all these bills paying for anything and everything for people. There should be absolutely no reason why somebody should be homeless in today's society.
Well, I think the issue then again becomes things that we do in this government. I mean, when everybody jumps on, the thing gets offset, and we don't have the money to do a lot of things. Another thing that's happened in this country...
But we do have the money. We have $17 trillion in debt, which means we've borrowed $17 trillion that we didn't have and spent it on essentially something we don't need.
Which is what?
A million things. I mean, how many times? Well, Obamacare for one.
But we're not there yet.
Well, I mean, it's already going.
Yeah.
Even though nobody's signing up for it, it's going, and we're going to have, that debt burden on our grandchildren because of that.
Well, I'm just trying to get the perspective of somebody, because what I want to know is, people keep saying, I don't want it, I don't want it, I don't want it, and I don't want the ceiling to go here. Okay, so the solution is what? Apparently, in your frame of mind, the solution is all of these programs that are meant to help the social groups, meant to help the public in general, are bad. And people should just
Over
move on.
time, yes, we need to scale these programs down.
And how is this country better with those gone and a balanced budget? What happens?
Well, a balanced budget means that we're fiscally responsible, which is always better
But
than
what does
being
that-
$17 trillion in debt.
But what does that do internally
Internally to what?
to the country?
It makes everybody a better person.
In what way?
I don't necessarily
I'm saying if
grasp where we're going with that question.
Let's total hypothetical, but in truth, the idea of what you're saying here. If we could, from 30 on, knock the Social Security out, knock the
Okay.
Medicare out, knock the Head Start out, knock the what they call entitlements out. If you knock
Right.
all those out, and you say this is the way it's going to be, and then we get all those trillions and trillions of debt down, and it keeps going in
Okay.
the opposite direction.
Okay.
When we get to that D-Day, when the people who don't take care of themselves do end up homeless, and the people who can't get health insurance end up sick and die, and the kids who needed to go to Head Start couldn't do it because they didn't have the money for whatever reason, because they don't get the choice. Mom and Dad make the choice.
Okay.
When that happens, but the government's got money now.
Well, the government has money now.
But the government is fiscally responsible.
Right.
So what does this country look like then? I mean,
It
do
is
we
a
just-
absolutely much better place because the lower the amount of debt that we have in the nation, the more jobs that are created by that. I mean, it's shown every time that we can lower these things down. There are obviously more jobs that are going to be created, and it will give those people an opportunity. By scaling back what we call entitlement programs, you force people to go out and work for themselves. You also you build entrepreneurs on that. You build small businesses by doing that. You cannot continue to tax these small businesses into oblivion I mean, my taxes just under Obama for my business have more than doubled under him. And all that's doing is hurting me. It's making it impossible for me to hire more people because we're taxing in order to give somebody a handout rather than allowing me to offer them a job. It's that simple.
So
It's economics 101.
So let me just lay this out broadly here. So the generation that fought in World War II, because really they were the first generation that received these programs.
Okay.
Okay. The
But
generation.
we're talking about different programs still here, too.
Well, Social Security is the big one.
Social Security is a big one.
Medicare came in under Johnson. They certainly
yes.
have gotten the benefit of that.
Sure.
The VA program,
Right.
veterans.
Now,
Okay.
we earn that. Veterans earn that, and I think that they should
But it's
get
run by
every
the
penny
government.
that they've
Now,
earned.
why
I don't
doesn't
have
an
any problem with that.
entrepreneur just hold that privately and say,
I would
let's-
love to have an entrepreneur hold that privately
and
and
why
get it
isn't
out of the
happening?
hands.
Somebody in the military field's got some money who could.
Right, but the fact is the government controls all of that.
Right, but I'm saying
They're not going to give up control of that because it's
Right, but
lining their pockets.
But I always wonder why somebody privately doesn't want to help veterans more often.
I think
mean,
people do all the time want to help
I don't-
veterans more often. I
you
get
know-
veterans discounts at half the stores in town.
Exactly, but I went to the. I mean, you've been to the veterans home in Sandusky, right?
Yeah, I've been up
Okay.
there.
Why are so many people there? Where are those people's families and friends?
I
And,
don't know,
You know,
but-
they are certainly able to get these entitlement
But here's
programs.
the thing. Those people served the country and are now a veteran, so now they've earned it. They've done something for that.
Right, but my question, that is run by the government. So my
Sure it
question
is.
based on your thing is,
And we should take care. The government should take care of the people who
So-
have protected
so
this country.
why haven't somebody rich in the military built? Because that's not the. If I wanted to live somewhere, that wouldn't be the place I would live. That
Okay.
building. So why don't somebody rich and entrepreneurial in the military who's pro-war, one of these people who supports the wars, one of these millionaires, why don't they go
Okay.
just build the gigantic Club Med for these people? Be enterprising. You would do it privately. It's a choice for these people to live in that government building. Why don't they do something nice like that?
And just allow them to live there for
Yeah,
free?
whatever.
I'm not necessarily going to tell you that there isn't somebody out there that's done that. I don't know that somebody hasn't done that.
I think the option needs to be made known if it has. I'm
Sure.
saying the problem is when we leave things up to people's own devices, unfortunately, there's a small group, and it's usually the minority, that does not follow through with that. And
Right.
then it always comes back in the long run, because then there become tremendous inequalities, and people say, well, why are people having abortions? Why are people needing a morning after pill? Why are people going into the military who don't want to go because they need that money for college? Why are people
Okay.
doing it? You run into a lot of problems.
I think all of those examples that you just gave are such an extremely small percentage of anybody that we're talking about that it's almost ridiculous to even bring those examples
Well, I don't
up.
know, because I think those are the people, if you're saying let's take it away, I think those are the people who are still going to go down that route.
I don't think so at all.
You think they just 180, and they all of a sudden say, I don't need that.
Well, we give them another option.
What about churches?
I would love it if churches ran the entire welfare program, but
No, I'm saying,
they don't.
what if we stop giving tax breaks to churches? Because that
I-
certainly hurts the government in a certain way.
I don't think. What do you mean tax breaks to churches?
Well,
churches don't
churches
pay
get-
taxes at all
Right.
because they don't
that's a
have
break.
income. They don't have income.
Well, when you take the money in, and you do have employees at churches, you hire
Okay.
a minister, you pay him.
Right.
You have upkeep on your building. There's no taxes charged. That's because the government says we are not going to charge you. You're a
Okay.
501c3 charity.
Okay.
If the government got out of that and
Okay.
said, you are just like any other group.
Okay.
You will pay taxes on your building. You will pay taxes on your income. You will do
I'm
whatever.
okay with that. But I don't
But do
see
you
where
think
we're.
they would be okay with that?
Yeah, I don't see where we're going with that though.
No, you do? You think they'd be okay with that?
Yeah, I would think so, but I don't see why we would. Where are you going with that?
Well, I'm saying I think when we pick on the things like Social Security and Medicare and Head Start,
Well, but again, you're looking at Social Security and Medicare and Head Start because those are hot button items.
Sure they
Because those three are things that are taken advantage of, and I don't mean they're abused, but the people that use those are, let's face it, they're low income. Okay, even Social Security recipients, you're not, it doesn't matter how much money that you made during life, you're not going to get rich off of Social Security in and of itself. Okay, so I'm saying there's a lower income people that are doing that. because it's a hot button issue with that. Well, let's take it away from the elderly. Let's take it away from the little babies that can't go to Head Start anymore. What about the people that abuse the welfare system? What about the bloated food stamps program that we have? That's where the dollars are getting wasted.
Right.
It's absolutely, it's ridiculous. A family of 5 in America today, a family of 5, 2 adults, 3 children, can get $900 a month worth of food stamps if neither parent is working. Who needs $900 a month in food?
But my question is, if neither parent's working, what do you do for food?
Well, there needs to be, and I'm okay with what we call the social welfare programs. What we call it, the cash assistance, the food stamps, those different programs. But it's not a career. That's a safety net, and it needs to have an end point to that, and it needs to make you want to get off of it. If you're going to give someone $900 a month in food, they have absolutely no reason to ever want to get back off of that. That's over $220 a week in food for a family of 5. I have 3 children and 1 on the way. We will soon have 6 people in my family, and we survive on about $120 a week at the grocery store, and then we eat out once, one time on the weekend. And we eat relatively well. We're certainly not eating filet mignon and crab, but my kids are fed. They're always hungry. Or they're never hungry. I'm sorry, that came out.
Yeah, but I guess I'm saying, and this is an interesting conversation that could go on forever, and maybe we'll do a part 2 on this sometime.
We probably should.
Well, yeah, because it is interesting. But I guess what I would say, living in Marion, Ohio, in modesty. You're not a millionaire. I'm not a millionaire.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Now, is that just lack of trying?
No. But why?
What is that? Because I
think that's living the American dream. My bills are paid. My kids have a roof over their head. I've got 4 tires under all my vehicles that I have. My bills are paid up. My kids aren't hungry. They go to school. They get stuff done. Why do I need any more than that? That's the kicker. Is why? I always strive for more than that, but it's perfectly fine with me to be middle class.
Right, but that's the conundrum I think of the whole situation is when we say. I had a problem with the idea that if you can't set up a retirement for yourself, if you can't turn yourself around, if we do take these things away, that you'll be forced to turn yourself around. Yeah. Does that mean people, if somebody makes more than they're trying harder?
No.
Well, see, that's what I don't get.
No, I don't think that means at all.
I guess because if you had the ability to do more with what you had, why wouldn't you?
Because right now you're not being forced to.
Right. So
right now you're looking at a system that says as long as you go to work and you put in your 40 hours a week, for the time from when you're 18 or if you go to college when you're 22, 23 years old until you decide to retire at 65 or 67. As long as you go and do all those little good things and be a good minion the entire time, Mr. Uncle Sam, Mr. Government, is going to take care of you for the rest of your life. So there is no reason for those people to invest any better than that. Now, some people have 401ks, and some people want to better themselves, beyond what Social Security is going to give them. But we don't force people to do that.
But I think you said it. You're not going to get rich off Social Security.
No, and why should you need to be rich?
Exactly, and I agree. But it's just to make sure you're not living on the street.
No, I'm okay with that, and that's all that Social Security is.
Right.
So why is it that every time it comes down to saying we got to cut spending somewhere in the federal government, they go immediately to Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid?
Because that's one of the biggest programs.
Well, it is one of the biggest programs, but it's one of those programs that is not overly bloated. Now, granted, we could say that, maybe we should push the retirement age out a little bit because we know with life expectancy the way that it is.
So I take it, what do we cut?
We cut entitlement programs.
Which are? Let's say which ones they are.
Okay, we cut the welfare programs.
The welfare programs.
We cut the food stamp program. We cut all of these things back. And again, I'm not saying that any of these things are necessarily bad in and of themselves, because we as a civilized society, fine. If we want to give people a safety net, fine. I completely disagree with it. I think the churches need to run that. It needs to be a charitable organization. It doesn't need to be, coming up with our handout to Uncle Sam. So we cut those things. We cut all of the crap that we're spending on, let's say the Department of Homeland Security. Okay, completely get rid of the Department of Homeland Security. They're wasting billions upon billions of our dollars, and they're doing absolutely nothing for us. Let's cut that. You stop these unnecessary wars that we've been having overseas. And when you go to fight a war, if it's necessary, like the war in Afghanistan, we go over there to find bin Laden. Why are we still there 13, 14 years later? Why didn't we go over there to win? Why are we over there half-heartedly fighting a war, and we're wasting billions of dollars doing
I
that.
think most people would agree with everything you just said. I think the problem is, how do you go back in time?
You don't go back in time. You start the process now.
Start it now, but when you cap this thing right now, as we're trying to figure out how we fix this,
You cap it and you stop borrowing money we don't have.
right, but then, see, but this all started with one issue, and I think we've said it on the last program. If that one issue had not come up, this never would have happened.
Which issue
We
is
wouldn't,
that?
Obamacare. We wouldn't be having this conversation.
Oh, we
that-
certainly would be having this conversation.
Well, we could have it in theory, but we wouldn't be having it as we head into a time. where we're
As
not
we
gonna
head
vote
into it
up.
today, we get rid of Obamacare. Yeah, we have a much better situation than we have.
That's not the, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if Obamacare had never entered into the picture, we
I
would
would
have
be a
never
happy
shut.
man.
That's fine. We never would have shut down the government. We never would be having
Well,
this
again,
conversation
all
on every other entitlement.
all we have done is put the
Every
government
other-
on a diet. That's all we've done.
Every other entitlement we've talked about would not be up for cutting right now. It's all.
And it should be. That's the
That's
problem.
fine. And let's have that.
Regardless of
That's okay.
Obamacare, the
But
federal
everybody-
government's still bloated.
But everybody in that Congress right now is gunning for that. And the hypocrisy I think that most people have with that is that when, and we went through the whole thing last time, and we can throw these semantics around and dance around it, but it is there.
Yeah.
It is law, and the idea now is just to defund it. They try and try and try to push this out as far as they can, so they won't have to fund that program. And the reason is, as everybody said, because it's very unique that you and Mary Ellen Withrow had the same answer on this question.
Okay.
If it's so terrible, why not put it in? And watch it fail. My God, within a year, and they
It
have,
is going to fail. It's
Let
going to
it.
fall flat on its face
Let
because
it.
nobody's signing up for it.
And the problem now is that the polls, and I believe the polls to be correct on this one, Republicans are taking a more severe beating in this than the president or the Democrats.
Okay.
And when it comes up, I mean, all they're going to succeed in doing is delaying till the next election when their popularity is so low.
I completely disagree
I-
with you on
We'll have to play this then.
that. Okay.
We'll play this show then, because I do
All right.
believe that
I
if
completely disagree.
if their popularity does not come back up, and when I go out to people who do not watch CNN or MSNBC or Fox News all the time, the anger they feel right now is with the people in government. It's the people.
Yes.
And right now,
Absolutely.
so if you flip-flopped every seat in
But do you know
that-
who they're mad at? When they're talking about Republicans that they're mad at the John McCains and the John Boehners of the world.
Could be.
The people that are out there right now that are championing and saying this is fantastic, support Ted Cruz.
Where will he be in a year?
Hopefully in the White House.
Well, not in a year.
Well, maybe not in a year. In 3, I really hope that he is.
I don't think the Republican Party will nominate him.
I don't think they will either. And I don't think that the Republican Party is going to have that option in 3 years.
So where does he go?
He goes either to a third party
What
or he
happened
takes
to the
over the Republican Party.
What happened to them?
That they lost their spine. They lost their principles. That's exactly what they've done.
Yeah, but I mean, when we got into this conversation, you called George W. Bush a progressive.
He is a
You
progressive.
said Reagan certainly supported things that you would not have supported
Yeah.
as a. So when did the Republican Party fall apart? Most people would say in the last couple of years.
No,
We're back
no,
to.
no.
Okay, that's right. So when did it?
The Republican Party, I would say it definitely started falling apart under H.W., really started falling apart under H.W., and it's just gone downhill since then.
You don't think that the deregulations under Reagan were a problem?
Yeah, they are a problem, but Reagan, again, did some things that were bad, and he may have started the slide, losing the Republican Party, but there's certainly the individual that hit the gas pedal would have been H.W., and then W was absolutely terrible.
No Republican, Tea Party or not, will ever criticize Ronald Reagan, because and even Democrats.
Oh, I'll
because they
criticize
know
Ronald
that
Reagan right now.
Oh, watch out! They'll leave you. They'll leave you. They'll all fly away.
That's all right.
Yeah, it's interesting because he has become sort of a patron saint, in
He
much
has.
the way that I think. I really do believe that Obama and Bill Clinton will be looked at years from now as the Ronald Reagans of the Democratic
I
Party.
think Clinton will. I think Obama's going to be looked at as a complete failure after he's impeached.
Impeached.
That's my thought.
Impeached for what?
Treason.
Which is because.
Well, that's a whole nother show. We
Well,
want
just
to
give me
talk
the
about.
answer so we can go into the next
Let's
show.
talk about the Muslim Brotherhood
Okay.
and giving money to them.
I'll tell you what, and on
We'll go
that
with
note,
that.
what happens on Thursday?
My hope is that the government stops borrowing more money. We hit the debt ceiling and we leave it at that.
What will happen? What do you believe will happen? That's what you hope. What do you believe?
I believe that on Thursday, absolutely nothing will change. We'll hit it, we'll stop borrowing, and then within a little while, then Boehner's going to cave
So it will go.
eventually.
Okay. And it's always an interesting conversation.
It always is.
It's fun. And we will be back next week talking about something new, probably what happened.
That sounds good to me.
By the way, should the Redskins change their name?
No.
Nope. Okay. And maybe we'll get into that when we have more time.
Let's try.
But it has been fun, and